Dr. Chantel Bennett wasn't supposed to be at the gala. She had spent the entire week working double shifts at the hospital and was already planning her escape when her friend Daniel convinced her to stay for just 1 hour. Across the room, Nicole Sterling watched her. For weeks, she'd been hearing about the woman who had somehow captured her brother's attention. Tonight, she finally saw her. Nicole picked up a glass of wine and started walking, slowly, deliberately. When she reached Chantel, she crashed into her shoulder hard enough to send red wine splashing down the front of Chantel's cream-colored dress. "Oops," Nicole said, "I didn't see you." The conversations around them began to fade. People were already watching. Chantel looked down at the stain, then back up. "You saw me," Nicole smiled. "Excuse me. You walked across the room to do that. Do you know who you're talking to?" "No," Chantel said. "And right now, I don't care." She reached out, took a fresh glass of wine from a passing waiter's tray, and poured it straight down the front of Nicole's white designer gown. Gasps erupted around them. Nicole stared at her in disbelief. Then her face twisted with fury. "Are you insane? Do you understand what this dress cost? Less than my dignity, I'm guessing." "Fix this mess," Nicole snapped, stepping closer. Or what?" The voice cut through the ballroom, every head turned. Michael Sterling was already walking toward them. Nicole immediately pointed at Chantel. "She attacked me. I was just standing here and she threw wine on me." Michael didn't answer. His eyes moved from the stains on both dresses to the half-empty tray beside the waiter and finally to Chantel's face. She looked irritated. Not guilty, not afraid, just irritated. "Michael, are you even listening?" Nicole demanded. Then she grabbed Chantel's wrist. "This woman needs to apologize right now." Chantel looked down at the hand, then back up. "Take your hand off me." Nicole tightened her grip. Chantel's expression hardened. "You have 3 seconds." A few people nearest to them instinctively stepped back. Something in her voice made them believe she meant it. "Nicole," Michael said. "Let her go." Nicole ignored him. Her fingers tightened again. That was when Michael moved fast, controlled. His hand connected with her cheek before anyone in the room could process what was happening. The slap echoed across the ballroom. Nicole stumbled backward, clutching her face. The room went completely silent. If someone publicly humiliated you like this, would you stay calm like Chantel? Or react immediately? Like this video, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe to Real Diamond Stories because what happened after this moment shocked everyone in that room. 6 weeks earlier, none of this would have made sense to anyone watching that scene unfold. Chantel Bennett was simply a 29-year-old internal medicine physician with a packed schedule and very little patience for anything unrelated to her patients. She was good at her job, disciplined, sharp, respected by senior doctors who usually dismissed anyone under 35 without a second look. She had built that respect herself, one 12-hour shift at a time, refusing every shortcut anyone offered her along the way. Outside the hospital, she gave one evening a week teaching free self-defense classes to women in her neighborhood. She never advertised why she'd started it. Only Daniel knew the real story, an old relationship that had taught her, painfully and slowly, exactly what it felt like to be made small by someone who claimed to love her. She had promised herself she would never feel that small again, and she made sure other women had the tools to make that same promise to themselves. "You need one night where you're not Dr. Bennett," Daniel told her that evening, steering her toward his car with a hand on her shoulder. "Just one night. I have a stack of charts to finish. The charts will still be there tomorrow. Tonight you're going to eat expensive food, meet some insufferable rich people, and pretend you're having fun. That's a terrible sales pitch. It's the only one I've got." The dinner turned out smaller than she expected. A private gathering of investors and entrepreneurs in the back room of a restaurant Daniel had clearly visited before. She sat through a round of polite introductions, only half listening, until a man pulled out the chair beside her and said simply, "I'm Michael." No surname. No mention of a company. No expectant pause waiting for her to look impressed. "Chantel," she said, "you look like you're counting the minutes until you can leave." She almost laughed despite herself. Is it that obvious? Only to someone doing the exact same thing. Then why are you here? Obligation. Why are you here? A friend who doesn't understand the word no. "I like him already," Michael said, and something about the dry way he said it made her actually smile for the first time that night. They talked for hours after that. Not about money, not about status, but about purpose. Why people spend entire lives chasing success only to feel empty once they finally had it. He asked careful questions, and then actually listened to her answers instead of waiting for his turn to talk. She found herself saying more than she normally allowed herself to say to a stranger. "You don't ask what I do for a living," she said at one point. "Most people lead with that. I figure you'll tell me if it matters. What if I never tell you? Then I suppose I'll have to keep asking you to dinner until you do." Before the night ended, they exchanged numbers, his thumb hovering for a second too long over the keyboard like he was deciding whether to say something else. Neither of them called. Weeks passed. Chantel buried herself back in work, and if she thought about the quiet, unassuming man from that dinner, she told herself it didn't matter. Strangers met and disappeared into separate lives all the time, and there was no reason this would be any different. Then one afternoon, a new family member accompanied her regular elderly patient, Grandma Sterling, into the exam room for a routine appointment. Chantel was reviewing the chart when she looked up and froze. "You," she said. Michael blinked, equally caught off guard. "Dr. Bennett," his grandmother beamed from the exam chair, delighted. "You two know each other. We met at a dinner," Michael said, recovering quickly. "I believe I misplaced her number. You lost it," Chantel said flatly, crossing her arms. "I prefer to say misplaced. There's no difference. There's a significant difference. Misplaced implies I intended to find it again." Grandma Sterling laughed warmly, watching the exchange with obvious delight. "She's wonderful, Michael. Gentlest hands of any doctor I've had in years. You should take her to dinner properly this time, grandmother." "What? I'm old. I'm allowed to say what I think." After the appointment, Michael lingered in the hallway while Chantel finished writing notes at the nurse's station. "Coffee," he said, "to make up for the misplacing. You're going to lose my number again, I'm not." He pulled out his phone right there in front of her and called her number, watching her own phone light up in her coat pocket. "Saved, permanently this time. You can check." She tried not to smile and failed completely. "Fine. Coffee. One time, that's all I'm asking for." Coffee became dinner. Dinner became long weekend walks through bookstores and street markets, the kind of slow, unremarkable dates that somehow meant more than anything dramatic could have. They sat in his car after midnight more than once, talking until one of them had to admit they had work waiting in the morning. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," she said one of those nights. Her seat reclined slightly, watching the streetlights blur through the windshield. "That's a big ask for someone who still doesn't know what I do for a living. You don't have to tell me that. I'm asking for something else." He was quiet for a moment. "I used to want to be a teacher, before all of this. I liked the idea of explaining something until it finally clicked for someone. What happened? Life happened. Responsibility happened." He glanced at her. "Your turn. I'm afraid of becoming someone who can't feel things anymore. I see so much loss at the hospital that some days I worry I'm running out of room to actually feel it. You don't seem like someone running out of room. Give me time." She noticed things along the way, the kind of small details that didn't add up to an ordinary businessman. A restaurant owner who refused to let Michael pay no matter how firmly he insisted. Strangers on the street who lowered their eyes and stepped aside the moment he passed. One night, walking toward a restaurant, a group of heavily built men cleared the doorway in unison the second they noticed him murmuring something respectful under their breath. She noticed. She filed it away. She didn't ask. The first time she saw the other side of him was entirely by accident. They were leaving a restaurant after dinner when a drunken man shoved an elderly waiter so hard that the old man stumbled into a table. Before Chantel could react, one of the men standing several steps behind Michael moved instinctively. Michael lifted one finger. The man froze instantly. Michael walked over himself. He helped the waiter back onto his feet, brushed the dust from the old man's sleeve, then turned slowly toward the customer. "You have 10 seconds, he said quietly, to apologize." The man laughed. Nobody else did. 9 seconds later, he apologized with shaking hands. Michael simply nodded once and walked away. Chantel watched him the entire walk back to the car. "People listen to you," she said. "Sometimes. Not sometimes. All the time." He looked out of the window instead of at her. She didn't ask another question. But for the first time, she wondered exactly who this man really was. Michael, for his part, noticed that she never asked. Everyone else in his life wanted something from him the moment they understood who he really was. Chantel seemed entirely uninterested in finding out, and that, more than anything, was what kept pulling him back to her. The illusion broke on an ordinary Tuesday evening, 3 months into whatever they had quietly become to each other. They were halfway through dinner when his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something in his face changed instantly, the warmth draining out of it, replaced by something colder and more focused than she'd ever seen on him. "I have to go," he said, already standing, already reaching for his jacket. "Michael, what's happening? I'll call you." "You can't just, I'll call you, Chantel." And he was gone before she could finish the sentence, leaving her alone at a table for two with his unfinished plate across from her. The next morning, the news reported a violent clash between two rival organizations near the docks. 3 men hospitalized. Property destroyed. No arrests made. Chantel read the article twice, her coffee going cold in her hands, her mind running through every strange detail she'd quietly collected over the past 3 months and refused to add up. She didn't confront him immediately. She let 2 days pass, gathering the courage to ask the question she already suspected the answer to. When she finally did, she asked it directly, sitting across from him at her own kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. "What exactly do you do, Michael?" He didn't flinch. He didn't lie either. "I lead an organization." "It's not the kind of business that gets written about in financial magazines." "Is it dangerous?" "Yes." If you've made it this far, hit that subscribe button right now, because Real Diamond Stories drops a brand new story just like this one every single week. And trust me, what's coming next is going to make this conversation look gentle by comparison. "Are you dangerous?" Chantel asked, her voice low but steady. "To people who deserve it," he said. "Never to you. Not now, not ever. How am I supposed to trust that, Michael? You're describing a part of your life I never agreed to be near." He reached across the table, his fingers stopping just short of hers, waiting to see if she'd pull back. "I won't pretend I can hand you a guarantee that nothing bad will ever touch your life because you're connected to mine. Nobody gets to promise that. What I can promise is that I will spend every day making sure the danger stays as far from you as I can possibly keep it." She didn't move her hand away. But the question sitting heaviest in her chest had nothing to do with trust. It was simpler and far more frightening than that. "Is there any version of a normal life waiting for someone like you?" she asked quietly. He had no answer. Neither of them did, but neither of them got up from that table either. Meeting his family happened sooner than she'd braced herself for, only a few weeks later. Grandma Sterling adored her on sight, gripping both her hands and announcing to the entire room that she had the gentlest soul she'd met in years before anyone had even sat down. Michael's younger brother, Marcus, started teasing her within minutes like they'd grown up together, sneaking food off her plate and grinning every time she swatted him away. "He likes you," Michael murmured close to her ear. "That's rare, coming from him." "Lucky me," she said. "It really is. He doesn't bother with people he doesn't think are sticking around." Nicole was a different story entirely. Pleasant, maybe a little too pleasant. She smiled in all the right places, said all the right things, asked Chantel polite questions about her work that sounded almost genuine. But her eyes tracked Chantel across the room the entire evening, quietly logging every moment between her brother and this woman like she was building a file on her. Later, while Chantel ignored Grandma Sterling's protests and helped clear the table, Nicole pulled Michael into the hallway. "Is this actually serious?" she asked. "Yes. You've known her, what, 2 months?" "3, he said. "And you're sure?" "I'm sure." That one word bothered her more than any explanation could have. She watched her brother walk back toward the dining room, watched how his entire body relaxed around this woman, and felt something tighten in her chest she couldn't quite name yet. It didn't take long for Jenna Lowell to resurface. Nobody had invited her back into the picture. She simply heard, through the kind of gossip that travels fast in circles like theirs, that Michael had moved on and seemed happy doing it. She went straight to Nicole, knowing exactly which buttons to press, setting up a casual lunch like two old friends catching up. "I just worry about him," she said over tea, her voice gentle, her concern carefully rehearsed. "A woman shows up out of nowhere and suddenly we're all supposed to trust her completely. It does seem fast." "She seems like the real thing," Nicole offered, though the words came out shakier than she expected. "They always seem like the real thing at first," Jenna said, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. "I just don't want him getting hurt the same way again." "What do you mean again?" "Nothing. Forget I said it." She let the silence stretch uncomfortably before adding, "I just don't want history repeating itself. I still care about this family, even now." Lunch after lunch, the doubt took root. Nicole began watching Chantel differently, twisting every warm gesture into something calculated, every easy laugh into a performance. The suspicion grew the way it always grows when someone who knows exactly what they're doing is the one planting it. Then the photos surfaced. Chantel and Michael at a quiet restaurant, posted anonymously with captions accusing her of chasing money and status. The story tore through gossip pages within hours and reached the hospital not long after. Patients started requesting other doctors without explanation. Coworkers lowered their voices the second she walked into the break room. Hospital administration pulled her into a private office, dressing their concern up in careful language that didn't hide what they were really saying. "We need to be sure this doesn't shake patient confidence in the hospital," the director said, avoiding her eyes. "It won't," Chantel told him, though for the first time she wasn't sure she meant it. That night, alone in her apartment, she stared at her medical license on the wall, the thing she'd sacrificed years of sleep and relationships to earn. She thought about watching it all slip away over a rumor she never started and couldn't stop. When Michael called, she finally said what she'd been holding back for days. "I think we need space," she told him. He was silent for a long moment. "Is that what you want?" he asked, "or what you're afraid is coming if you don't take it? Does it matter which?" "It matters to me. I can't risk everything I built for something 3 months old, Michael. Is that all this is to you? A number of months? That's not what I meant. It's how it sounded." She gripped the phone tighter, eyes shut. "I don't even know what I'm trying to say right now. I just know I'm scared and I don't know how to keep doing this while I'm this afraid." "Then take your time," he said quietly. "However much you need. I won't call. I won't show up at your door. But understand this, I'm not walking away from my end of this." Okay, a pause stretched between them. "Good night, Chantel." "Good night, Michael." The days that followed were brutal for them both, though neither would have admitted that to a single soul. Chantel buried herself in back-to-back shifts until she could barely stand. Michael sat through meeting after meeting without retaining a word anyone said. Marcus noticed first, dropping uninvited into the chair across from his brother's desk. "You've been miserable to be around for a week," he said. "What happened with the doctor?" "Nothing happened." That's the exact answer someone gives when something happened. "We're taking time apart." "Why?" "Because her career is getting wrecked by rumors that started because of me, and she isn't sure she can survive that." Marcus studied him quietly. "And what do you think?" "I think I'd rather tear apart whoever started those rumors than lose her over them." "Then maybe stop sitting in this office and go do exactly that." After teaching her self-defense class one evening, Chantel walked toward the underground garage alone, exhausted and still replaying her last conversation with Michael over and over in her head. She never saw Jenna step out from behind a concrete pillar until it was already too late to avoid her. "You think you've won," Jenna said, her voice trembling somewhere between fury and desperation. "You think you can just walk into his life and take everything I spent years building. I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't lie to me." Jenna's composure shattered completely, her hands shaking at her sides. "I gave that family everything. I gave him everything. And you just show up with your perfect job and your perfect smile and take it without even trying. I never took anything that belonged to you. Whatever happened between you and Michael happened long before I was ever in his life. You don't get to say his name like you know him. I do know him, better than you ever will." Jenna grabbed Chantel's arm, her nails biting into the skin. "Apologize. Tell me you'll leave him alone. Let go of me. Apologize." A second woman stepped out of the shadows nearby, a friend Jenna had brought along. Both of them convinced this would simply be enough to scare a stranger into backing off quietly. She grabbed Chantel's other arm, trapping her between them. What neither woman expected was that Chantel had spent years training women on exactly how to escape a hold like this, even from two people at once. The fight was over in under 30 seconds. Chantel twisted out of Jenna's grip, stepped into the second woman's space before she could react, and had both of them off balance and stumbling within moments. She never threw a single unnecessary punch. She never lost her footing or her breathing once. "Stay down," Chantel said, steady despite her pounding heart, standing over the two women now sprawled across the concrete. "I didn't start this, and I'm not going to be the one who finishes it the wrong way." Every second of it was caught on the garage's security cameras. Police showed up within minutes. Jenna was led away in handcuffs, sobbing, humiliated in front of the small crowd that had gathered near the entrance. Chantel, trembling slightly now that the adrenaline had worn off, told the officer she didn't want to press charges. "I just want to go home," she said. When Michael heard what happened the next morning, his reaction wasn't anger at Chantel for defending herself. It was something far heavier, something that settled in his chest like a stone. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked, standing in her doorway, his voice shaking in a way she'd never heard from him. "Because it wasn't your problem to fix." Chantel, every time you shield me from your problems, you take away my chance to protect you too. Do you understand what it feels like, finding out after the fact that someone attacked you and you handled it completely alone? I didn't want to be one more weight on you while you were already carrying everything else. You are not a burden. You have never been a burden to me. You are the only person in my life who has never asked me for a single thing, and somehow that makes me want to give you everything I have. Something in her chest finally cracked open at those words, the wall she'd spent the past week building coming apart all at once. I was so scared, Michael. Not of her, of losing everything I worked for, of losing you. Of not knowing how to hold on to both at the same time. You don't have to choose between them. I won't let you choose. I love you, she whispered, the words escaping before she could stop them. I've loved you for weeks, and I was too afraid to say it out loud. I love you too, he said, pulling her into him, his hand cradling the back of her head. I have for longer than I probably should admit. That night ended their separation and started something neither of them would let go of again, which made the gala, weeks later, hurt even more when it finally arrived. Because by the time the gala rolled around, Nicole had spent months quietly absorbing Jenna's carefully planted poison, one lunch at a time, one seed of doubt at a time. Even after the arrest, even after watching firsthand how unstable that night in the garage had really been, Nicole had already convinced herself that Chantel was somehow the cause of all the chaos surrounding her brother's life. So when she spotted Chantel standing alone at the gala in that cream-colored dress, looking far too at ease in a room Nicole felt she had no right to belong in, every ounce of that resentment came pouring out at once. The whine. The retaliation. The slap that silenced an entire ballroom in an instant. This time, watching it play out from the outside, anyone who knew the full story understood exactly what was riding on every motion. Nicole's misdirected fury built on months of manipulation, Michael's protectiveness finally snapping after weeks of holding it together, Chantel's quiet refusal to shrink for anyone, even a family she desperately wanted to love her back. The car ride home that night carried a silence heavy enough to feel pressing down on both of them. Tell me what really happened in that garage, Michael finally said, eyes locked on the road ahead. All of it, not the short version you gave the police. Chantel walked him through it again, slower this time. Jenna's accusations, the second woman, the fight, the things Jenna had screamed about giving everything to his family. Michael's jaw tightened, his hands flexing against the wheel. She said that, about giving everything. Yes. Why does that matter to you? He didn't answer right away. Something was working itself loose in his mind, something he wasn't ready to say out loud yet. The next morning, he requested a private meeting with Jenna, who was still tangled up in the legal mess from her arrest. She walked in defensive, bracing for another argument about boundaries she'd already crossed. Instead, Michael asked one question, sitting across from her with absolutely no warmth left in his face. What did you mean, that night in the garage, about giving my family everything? Jenna's face drained of color. She sat in silence for a long stretch, her hands twisting in her lap. Tell me, he said quietly, leaning forward, or I stop protecting you from what could have happened legally that night, and I let it run its full course this time. She broke completely, the words tumbling out like something she could no longer carry alone. Years ago, my family's company was falling apart. I was desperate, Michael. I leaked information, confidential information tied to your organization, to people who promised to save my father's business in return. Tears slid down her face, her voice cracking. I didn't know what they were going to do with it. I swear I didn't know people would get hurt. Michael's expression turned to stone, something cold settling behind his eyes. 3 men were hospitalized because of that leak. Do you understand that? People's lives were changed because of a choice you made and never told me about. I know, I couldn't tell you. I was too ashamed, too afraid of what you'd do once you knew the truth. So instead you let me believe our engagement ended over simple incompatibility. You let me carry that confusion for years. I didn't have a choice. You had a choice every single day since then to tell the truth, instead of letting everyone, including my own sister, believe Chantel was the villain in a story you started. Jenna had nothing to say to that. There was nothing that could undo what she'd already done. That evening, Michael sat down with Nicole in the quiet of the family study and told her everything. Jenna's betrayal years earlier. The leaked information. The people hurt because of it. The careful manipulation she'd fed Nicole lunch after lunch for months. Nicole sat frozen as the pieces clicked into place in front of her. She came to me worried about Chantel. She made it sound like she cared about this family, about protecting you. She was protecting herself by tearing someone else's reputation apart in the process. I defended her, Michael. I believed her over the woman who has done nothing but love you honestly since the day you met her. You didn't know what she was doing to you. I should have looked closer before I let her convince me Chantel was a threat. Her voice cracked, her hands covering her face. I humiliated Chantel in front of every important person in this city because of someone who betrayed our family years ago and never had the decency to admit it. Nicole. I poured wine on a woman who was just standing there, minding her own business. Because I let myself be manipulated by someone with her own agenda. What does that make me? It makes you someone who was lied to. It doesn't make you her. Then I need to fix it. I need to actually fix it, not just feel guilty about it quietly. If this story is hitting you the way it's hitting us, smash that like button and drop a comment telling us what you would have done in Chantel's shoes. Because the next part is exactly the kind of redemption arc this channel was built for. And you do not want to miss it. Days later, Nicole showed up at the hospital, waiting outside Chantel's office until the last patient of the day had gone. Her hands clasped tightly in front of her like she didn't know what else to do with them. I don't expect you to forgive me, Nicole said the second Chantel opened the door, the words rushing out before her nerve could fail her. I just needed you to know that I understand now, all of it. What Jenna did, what I let her talk me into believing, what I put you through at that gala in front of everyone we know. I'm sorry, genuinely. Completely sorry. Chantel studied her for a long moment, arms crossed, weighing how much of it she believed. I appreciate you saying that, but trust isn't rebuilt with an apology, Nicole. It's rebuilt with time, and with actions that prove the apology actually meant something beyond the moment you said it. Nicole nodded, taking it without pushing back, without the defensiveness Chantel had half expected from her. I understand. I'll earn it. I know I don't have any right to ask for your patience, but I'm asking anyway. Then let's see what you do with it. The weeks that followed showed exactly what Nicole would do with it. She started showing up to Chantel's self-defense classes, not to perform an apology for an audience, but to genuinely learn. She brought coffee to the hospital on the mornings she knew Chantel was working a brutal shift, never once expecting conversation in return. Small gestures, repeated honestly, over and over. The kind of quiet consistency that meant more than any single conversation ever could have. By the time the Sterling family gathered for dinner months later, Chantel sat at that table not as an outsider being tolerated, but as someone who had earned her seat through everything she'd survived to get there. Grandma Sterling held her hand through most of the meal, occasionally squeezing it like she was reassuring herself the worst was truly behind them. Marcus stole food off her plate exactly like always, and this time Nicole laughed along with the rest of the table, instead of watching from a careful distance. Michael caught her eye from across the table at one point, and in that single look was everything neither of them had been brave enough to say out loud months earlier, that they had made it through the part of the story most people don't survive intact. After dinner, standing together on the balcony while the rest of the family cleared plates inside, Michael finally asked the question that had been sitting with him since that night in her kitchen. Do you think you can have a peaceful life with someone like me? He asked. Chantel thought about the gala, the slap, the garage, the months of whispered rumors and quiet humiliation, all of it leading to this exact moment standing beside him with the city lights spread out below them. I think peaceful was never really what I wanted, she said finally. I think I wanted something real, something that doesn't fall apart the first time it gets tested. And we already know what that looks like for us. He pulled her close, resting his chin against the top of her head, and for the first time since the night the photographs leaked, neither of them felt the need to brace for whatever came next. They had already survived the worst version of what people like them whispered about, and they had come out the other side standing exactly where they wanted to be, together, in front of the family that finally saw her for who she really was. If you made it all the way to the end of this one, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe to Real Diamond Stories so you never miss the next story. Drop a like if Chantel earned every bit of that ending, and tell us in the comments which moment hit you hardest. We'll see you in the next one.